She was drowning, not just in the river, but in a life that had beaten her down until she believed she deserved nothing but pain. He was a ghost, a soldier haunted by war, hiding in the mountains because he thought he had nothing left to give. But when Eli Walker pulled Clara Jensen from that freezing river, he didn't just save her body. He started saving her soul, and she was about to crack open the walls around his heart that he swore no one would ever break through. This is a story of two broken people who found each other in the wildest place on earth. A story that will make you cry, make you angry, and make you believe that love can heal even the deepest wounds. Stay with me until the end. I promise you won't regret it. This story reminds us that no matter how broken we feel, we are never beyond saving. Sometimes the person who rescues us is just as wounded as we are. And together, two broken souls can build something beautiful. If you believe in second chances and the healing power of love, hit that subscribe button and join our family. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from today. And if this story touches your heart, share it with someone who needs to hear that they deserve happiness too. Now let me take you back to Wyoming, 1878. The scream cut through the wilderness like a knife. Eli Walker froze. The rasp of his file went silent in his hand. That sound did not belong to the mountains. It did not belong to the pines or the rushing Wind River. It was human, high, sharp, terrified. For a moment, he thought it was another ghost from his past, a memory from the war that still haunted his dreams. But then it came again, weaker this time, almost swallowed by the roar of the swollen river. Eli dropped his tools and ran. His long legs pounded across the rough ground as he scanned the water. The peaceful river he lived beside was gone. In its place was a wild brown beast, full of broken branches and racing snowmelt, chewing at the banks like it wanted to eat the whole valley. And then he saw her, a woman, half submerged, clinging to the broken limbs of a fallen cottonwood tree that was being hammered by the current. Her dark hair was plastered to her face. Her dress was torn. One arm was wrapped around a thick branch while the river tried to rip her away. Her head dipped, then came back up, barely staying above the rushing foam. She was drowning. Eli Walker did not think. He did not plan. He did not pray. He moved. He kicked off his boots, ripped off his gun belt, and dove into the freezing river. The shock of the cold hit him like a punch to the chest. The current yanked at him, pulling him under, slamming debris into his ribs and shoulders. He fought it with every ounce of strength he had left from a life built on survival. When he reached the cottonwood, his fingers burned from the cold. He grabbed a thick limb to steady himself and reached for her arm. "Hold on!" he shouted over the roar of the water. She did not answer. Her eyes were half closed. Her face was pale as death. She was slipping away. Eli could see the problem now. Her leg was wedged deep between two branches underwater. The river was going to drown her if he did not act fast. He sucked in a breath and went under. The current shoved him sideways. Mud blinded his eyes. He groped with numb fingers until he found her ankle. Twisted. Trapped. He pulled with everything he had. A violent yank that nearly tore his shoulder from its socket. Her foot came free. They resurfaced together. She was limp in his arms, dead weight in the freezing water. "Stay with me," he growled through clenched teeth. It was not a request. It was a command. The same command he had given to dying men on battlefields. The same words he had screamed at his brother Samuel before the fever took him. Fighting the river with her weight dragging him down was like fighting 10 wars at once. But slowly, painfully, step by step, he got them to shore. Eli collapsed onto the mud beside her, chest heaving, arms shaking. For a long second, she did not move. Then she coughed, a harsh, painful sound that felt like a miracle. Her eyes opened, moss green, foggy with fear, beautiful even covered in mud and river water. "You are safe," Eli said. His voice was breathless, rough. She flinched away from him, scrambling weakly backward even though she could barely sit. Her dress was ruined, ripped open at the shoulder, clinging to her body in a way that made her wrap her arms around her chest in shame. "Where am I?" she whispered. "River country, my land. You are on my property." Her eyes went wide, wild, desperate. "You are not taking me to town. Please, not town." The terror in her voice did not make sense. She had almost drowned. Town meant a doctor, warm food, a bed. Why would she fear that more than death? But Eli Walker was not a man who forced anyone into anything. Not anymore. The war had taught him what happened when men use their strength to control others. "I am not taking you anywhere but somewhere warm," he said simply. "You will die out here." She tried to stand. Her legs gave out. Eli caught her before she hit the ground. She stiffened in his arms. He felt her whole body go rigid with fear, like a wild animal caught in a trap. But she did not fight. She was too weak to fight. He carried her all the way to his cabin. Inside, the single room was warm from the fire he never let go out. He set her gently in the chair closest to the hearth and tossed more wood on the flames. "Get those wet clothes off," he said. He turned away to give her privacy. His tone was not rough, just practical. She froze behind him. Her voice shook when she spoke. "I will not be a bother. As soon as my clothes dry, I will go. You are not going anywhere. River is too high. It will be days before anyone can cross." The silence was thick, fire crackling, her breath trembling, the storm outside pressing against the walls like it wanted in. Eli made coffee, added a generous splash of whiskey from the bottle he kept for cold nights. He set the cup beside her without looking at her body. When he finally turned around, she was wrapped in his spare wool blanket. Her wet dress hung near the fire, steaming. Her hands trembled around the cup. Her eyes stared into the flames like something terrible lived inside them. This woman had been through hell. Eli could see it written all over her. The bruise on her cheek, the way she flinched at sudden sounds, the fear that never left her eyes. "My name is Eli Walker," he said. She lifted her gaze, for the first time without fear. "Clara Jensen," she whispered. They drank in silence. Firelight danced across her tired face. When she finally spoke, her voice was thin as paper. "My husband passed not long ago. He left debts, bad ones. Men came for the land, said it belonged to them now." She swallowed hard. Her throat moved like the words were knives. "I ran. I did not know the river was so high. My horse threw me. I thought I was going to die." She did not finish. She did not need to. Eli did not ask questions. He understood danger. He understood running. He had done plenty of both in his 32 years on this earth. The night deepened. She grew quiet, exhausted, fighting to keep her eyes open. Eli laid out his bedroll on the floor near the fire. "You take the cot," he said, nodding toward the narrow bed against the wall. She hesitated. Her eyes darted between him and the cot, between him and the door, calculating, measuring. Then she nodded, a small, fragile movement. But as the fire dimmed and shadows grew long, her voice came from the darkness. "Mr. Walker." He did not turn from his place on the floor. "What is it?" A long pause. Her breathing shaky. When she spoke, the words hit him like a hammer. "Will you stay if I undress?" Eli went still, every muscle in his body locked tight. He knew what she was offering. He knew what she expected. A payment, a trade, her body for his protection. It was the oldest bargain in the world. And the look in her eyes when she asked told him everything he needed to know about the man who had been her husband. She expected him to say yes. She expected him to use her, because that was all she knew. That was all men had ever wanted from her. Eli stared hard at the dying coals. His jaw clenched so tight his teeth ached. His voice came out low, rough, final. "No one is bothering you here. Get some sleep." Behind him, she let out a quiet, choked sob, the sound of a woman who had prepared herself for the worst and received something she did not understand instead. Kindness. Eli Walker lay awake for hours, staring at the fire, listening to her cry herself to sleep. He knew the river had washed more than one kind of storm into his life that night. He knew this woman carried secrets dark enough to drown in. He knew getting involved would only bring him trouble. But when he finally closed his eyes, it was not the war he dreamed of. It was moss green eyes, and the sound of her voice saying his name. Clara Jensen had almost died in his river, and something told Eli Walker that saving her body was only the beginning. Her soul needed saving too. Morning light crept into the cabin slowly, pale and cold, the color of Wyoming winter, even though spring was supposed to be here. Eli Walker was already up. He leaned against the door frame with a cup of coffee in his hand. staring at the river. It had calmed some overnight, but not enough for anyone to cross. He did not hear Clara stir, but he felt it when she woke. The shift in her breathing, the soft rustle of the blanket, the quiet dread settling between them like fog rolling down from the mountains. When she finally rose from the cot, she moved stiffly. Her limp was worse today. Her eyes were red, not from sleep, from tears she had tried to hide in the darkness. "The river is still too high," Eli said without turning around. "I see that." Her voice was quiet, guarded, like she expected him to change his mind, to become the monster she knew men could be. Eli kept his eyes on the water. "There is bread in the box, bacon in the pantry. Help yourself." He heard her move around the cabin behind him, heard the creak of the pantry door, the clatter of the pan on the stove. She was making breakfast. For both of them, like it was the most natural thing in the world. It was not natural. Nothing about this situation was natural. But Eli let it happen anyway. They ate in silence. The bacon was good. The bread was stale, but she had warmed it by the fire until it was almost fresh again. She knew her way around a kitchen. That much was clear. When the meal was done, Clara stood and reached for the dishes. "You do not have to do that," Eli said. "I want to earn my keep. I will not be a burden." There was steel in her voice, the first hint of the woman she might have been before life beat her down. Eli did not argue. He went outside to work. The days passed like this, slow, quiet, heavy. They shared the cabin, but not their thoughts. They cooked together, ate together, did chores together, but they still lived like two strangers who happened to share the same ghost-filled room. Clara worked the small garden beside the cabin. Her limp slowed her down but never stopped her. She weeded and watered and planted new seeds she found in Eli's supply shed. When he told her she did not have to, she only said it is better than sitting. He understood that. Sitting gave you time to think, and thinking could be dangerous when your mind was full of dark things. Eli watched her more than he wanted to admit. He saw the way she jumped at sudden noises, the way she flinched when he walked too close, the way she never turned her back on him, even when she was cooking at the stove. She did not trust him. Fair enough. He had not given her reason to trust him yet. But on the third day, something changed. It was afternoon. Eli was coming back from checking his traps when he heard a sound from inside the cabin. Soft, broken, the sound of someone crying without wanting to be heard. He stopped at the door. Through the window, he could see Clara sitting at the table. Her shoulders were shaking. In her hands was a small silver locket. She held it like it was the most precious thing in the world. Eli made a noise with his boot on purpose, loud enough so she would not feel ambushed. The crying stopped immediately. By the time he walked through the door, she was wiping her eyes and tucking the locket away. "It is nothing," she said quickly, "just a foolish memory." Eli did not push. Her pain was hers to give, not his to take. He set the rabbits on the table and started cleaning them for supper. But later, when Clara thought he was not listening, he heard her whisper to the locket as she tucked it into her dress. He had his father's eyes. The words hit Eli like a fist to the gut. He had his father's eyes, not she or it. He. Clara Jensen had lost a child. That night, Eli could not sleep. He lay on his bedroll, staring at the ceiling, listening to Clara's breathing across the room. She was awake too. He could tell by the way she shifted every few minutes, the way her breath caught sometimes, like she was fighting back tears. Around midnight, she spoke. "Mr. Walker." "Just Eli." A pause, then softer. "Eli." He did not answer, just waited. "Why did you save me? You could have let the river take me. No one would have known." The question sat in the darkness between them, heavy as a stone. "Because you were drowning," Eli said finally. "That is reason enough. But you do not know me. You do not know what I have done. What if I am a bad person?" "Are you?" Another pause. Longer this time. "I do not know anymore." Eli turned his head to look at her. In the dim firelight, he could see her profile against the wall, the curve of her cheek, the shadows under her eyes. "I spent 3 years killing men in a war," he said quietly. "Some of them deserved it. Some of them did not. I have done things that would make your hair turn white, but I do not think that makes me a bad person. Just a person who survived bad things." Clara was silent for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. How do you live with it? The things you have done. Eli turned back to the ceiling. One day at a time. Some days are harder than others, but you keep waking up. You keep breathing. Eventually, the weight gets lighter. Not gone, just lighter. She did not respond, but something in the air between them shifted. A wall came down, just a little, just enough. They slept better that night, both of them. The next morning, Clara was different, still guarded, still careful, but there was something new in her eyes, a spark that had not been there before. She made breakfast again, but this time she sat across from him while they ate, actually looked at him when she spoke. Tell me about the war, she said. It was not a demand, it was an invitation, a door opening between them. Eli put down his fork. For a moment, he considered refusing. The war was not something he talked about, not with anyone, but something about the way she asked made him want to answer. I enlisted when I was 19, he said slowly. My brother Samuel came with me. He was only 16, but he lied about his age. Wanted to be a soldier like his big brother. He paused. The memories were sharp as broken glass. Samuel died in a camp. Fever took him before he ever saw a real battle. I held his hand while he went, told him he was the bravest man I knew. Clara's eyes glistened. I am sorry, Eli shrugged. It was a long time ago. But it was not really. Samuel's face still haunted his dreams. His brother's last words still echoed in his ears. Promise me you will go home, Eli. Promise me you will find something worth living for. He had never found it, until now, maybe. What about you, Eli asked. What is your story, Clara Jensen? She looked down at her hands. For a long moment, he thought she would not answer. Then she began to speak. My husband's name was Silas. I married him when I was 18. My father arranged it. Said he was a good man with a good future. She laughed bitterly. He was wrong. Silas drank. Silas gambled. Silas lost more money than he ever made. And when he lost, when the cards turned against him, or the bottle ran dry, he needed someone to blame. Her voice dropped to a whisper. That someone was always me. Eli felt his hands curl into fists under the table. He kept his voice calm. He hurt you. Clara lifted her chin. For the first time, there was defiance in her eyes. He hurt me, but I survived. I learned how to take a beating without crying, how to hide the bruises where no one could see, how to smile when I wanted to scream. She took a shaky breath. Then I got pregnant. The words hung in the air. Eli waited. For 9 months, I thought everything would change. I thought a baby would make him better, make him happy, make him stop. She shook her head. I was a fool. What happened? The baby came early. Too early. He only lived 3 days. Her voice broke on the last word, but she did not cry. She had no tears left to give. Silas blamed me, said I was weak, said I killed his son. After that, the beatings got worse. I knew if I stayed, I would die. So I ran. Eli sat in silence for a long moment, processing, understanding. The locket, he said finally. Clara nodded. His hair, a few strands. It is all I have left of him. She looked up at Eli. Her eyes were dry but full of a pain so deep it made his chest ache. Now you know everything, she said. Now you know what kind of woman I am. Eli Walker stood up from the table. He walked around to her side and knelt down so they were eye to eye. I know exactly what kind of woman you are, he said quietly. You are the strongest person I have ever met. For the first time since she came to his cabin, Clara Jensen smiled. It was small, fragile, barely there, but it was real. And Eli Walker knew in that moment that he would do anything to see that smile again. A week passed. The river began to calm. The water dropped inch by inch, revealing the muddy banks and scattered debris it had swallowed during the flood. Clara could leave now. The path to town was open. She could walk out of Eli Walker's life just as quickly as she had fallen into it. But she did not leave. Every morning, Eli waited for her to pack her things, to thank him for his kindness, and disappeared down the valley. But every morning she was there, making coffee, tending the garden, mending his shirts with careful, practiced stitches. Neither of them talked about it. Neither of them asked the question that hung in the air between them. What happens now? The truth was, Eli did not want her to go. The cabin felt different with her in it. Warmer, fuller, less like a place where a lonely man waited to date and more like a home. But he was not foolish enough to say that out loud. Clara was not his to keep. She was a woman running from her past. Sooner or later, that past would catch up to her. It happened sooner than he expected. On the eighth day, Eli spotted a rider coming across the valley. He recognized the horse immediately, a big bay gelding that belonged to the Double Bar Ranch where Eli sometimes worked during roundup season. The rider was Jed Hawkins, a weathered ranch hand with more years than teeth. Good man, hard worker, but he never rode all the way out here unless he had news. And news in these parts was rarely good. Clara saw the rider too. Eli watched her face go pale as milk. Her hands started shaking so bad she dropped the basket of vegetables she was carrying. Easy, Eli said quietly. That is just Jed. Works at the Double Bar. He is harmless. But Clara was not listening. Her eyes were locked on the approaching horse like it was Death himself riding toward her. Jed pulled up in front of the cabin and tipped his hat. Eli, been a while. Jed, what brings you out this way? Jed's eyes flicked to Clara, then back to Eli. He shifted uneasily in his saddle. There is talk in town, he said slowly, about her. Eli felt his jaw tighten. What kind of talk? Jed sighed. They are saying the widow Jensen is not really a widow, that her husband died in a brawl and she ran off with money that was not hers. Clara made a sound behind him. Small and wounded, like an animal caught in a trap. There is more, Jed continued. Amos Jensen, her husband's brother. He is in town, telling everyone who will listen that she stole from the family. Sheriff seems to believe him. They are fixing to look for her. The name hit Clara like a physical blow. Eli heard her gasp, heard her stumble backward until she hit the cabin wall. Jed looked uncomfortable. I am not here to cause trouble, Eli. Just thought you should know what you are dealing with. He tipped his hat again and turned his horse around. Watch your back, friend. Amos Jensen is not a man you want to cross. Then he was gone, leaving dust and fear behind him. Eli turned to Clara. She had slid down the wall until she was sitting on the ground. Her arms were wrapped around her body. She was shaking like it was the dead of winter. He knelt down beside her. Talk to me, Clara. Who is Amos Jensen? Her voice came out in broken pieces, like shattered glass falling from her lips. He is Silas's brother, older, meaner. He hated me from the first day Silas brought me home. Said I was not good enough for the Jensen name. She looked up at Eli with haunted eyes. He wants what little money I saved, the pennies I hid away over the years, the money I was going to use to escape. He knows I have it, and he will not stop until he gets it. Eli felt something dark coil inside him, a rage so deep it made his hands shake. How much money are we talking about? Clara swallowed hard. Maybe $200. It is not a fortune. But to Amos, it is about pride, about punishing me for running, about proving that no woman escapes the Jensen family without permission. She started to cry then, silent tears rolling down her cheeks. You have to understand, she whispered. My marriage to Silas was not legal. We were married by a preacher on the trail, but Silas never filed the papers. I have no rights to anything. Not the money, not the land, not even my own name. Eli sat back on his heels, processing. So Amos can claim you stole from him? Yes. And the law will believe him. A Jensen's word against a woman with no family, no connections, no proof of anything. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. I should go. I have brought you nothing but trouble. You do not need to get mixed up in my problems. She tried to stand. Eli put his hand on her shoulder. Gentle but firm. Where exactly do you think you are going to go? Clara looked at him, confused, afraid. I do not know. Anywhere far from here. Eli shook his head. You would not make it 10 miles. You have no horse, no supplies, and Amos has men looking for you. The moment you step out of this valley, they will find you. Then what am I supposed to do? Eli stood up. He reached down and pulled her to her feet. You stay here. You let me handle this. Clara stared at him. Her eyes searched his face for something, some hint of what he wanted in return, some sign that this was a trick. Why would you do that for me? You do not even know me. Eli looked out at the river. The water was calm now, peaceful. Hard to believe it had almost killed them both just a week ago. I know enough, he said quietly. I know you are scared. I know you are running from something terrible. I know you deserve better than what life has given you. He turned back to her. And I know what it feels like to have no one in your corner, to fight alone against a world that does not care if you live or die. Clara's eyes filled with fresh tears. Eli Walker. Why are you so kind to me? He did not have an answer for that, not one he was willing to say out loud. So he said something else instead. Go inside, get warm, I need to think. Clara hesitated. Then she nodded and walked back into the cabin. Eli stood alone in the yard for a long time, watching the sun sink behind the mountains, thinking about the war, about Samuel, about the promises he had made and broken over the years. He had sworn never to get involved again, never to care about anyone or anything. It was easier that way, safer. But Clara Jensen had changed something in him, cracked open the walls he had built around his heart, made him feel things he thought were dead and buried. He could not let Amos Jensen hurt her, could not let her face that monster alone. Tomorrow, he would ride into town. He would find out exactly what they were dealing with, and then he would figure out a way to keep her safe, even if it cost him everything. Dumb. That night, Clara's fever came back. It started small, a cough, a shiver. By midnight, she was burning up, tossing on the cot, whispering things that did not make sense. Eli stayed by her side the whole night. He bathed her forehead with cool water, kept the fire going, spoke to her when she cried out in her sleep. She called for her baby, begged someone named Silas to stop, pleaded with God to let her die. It broke something inside Eli to hear it, the raw pain in her voice, the terror that lived in her memories even now. Just before dawn, she grabbed his hand. Her grip was weak but desperate. Her eyes were glassy, unfocused. You are the only one, she murmured. The only one who ever touched me without wanting something. The words split him open, right down the middle. He held her hand until the fever broke, until her breathing steadied and her grip relaxed, until the first pale light of morning crept through the window. She was going to be okay, for now. But Eli knew the real fight was just beginning. Amos Jensen was coming. And when he arrived, all the demons of Clara's past would come with him. Eli Walker had spent his whole life running from his own demons. Now it was time to stand and fight. For her. Clara recovered slowly over the next few days. The fever left her weak but alive. And something had changed between her and Eli during those long dark hours. The walls were coming down. She started talking more, asking questions, wanting to know about his life before the war, about his family, about the dreams he used to have before the world taught him that dreams were dangerous. Eli found himself answering, telling her things he had never told another living soul. He told her about growing up on a farm in Missouri, about his mother who died when he was 12, about his father who worked himself into an early grave trying to hold the family together. He told her about Samuel, the little brother who followed him everywhere, who looked up to him like he was something special, who died believing Eli could save him. I could not save him, Eli said quietly. They were sitting on the porch watching the sunset paint the mountains gold and pink. I held his hand and told him everything was going to be fine. But it was not fine. He died alone in a cold tent 1,000 miles from home. Clara reached over and took his hand. Her fingers were warm against his calloused skin. You were there, she said softly. That is not alone. Eli looked at her, really looked at her, the fading bruises on her face, the sadness in her moss-green eyes, the strength that lived beneath the fear. You are something else, Clara Jensen. She smiled, that small, fragile smile that made his heart do strange things. So are you, Eli Walker. They sat like that until the stars came out, hands intertwined, hearts beginning to heal. The next morning, Clara asked if she could ride drum. Eli's horse was a big, gentle gelding with more patience than sense. She said she wanted to feel the wind again, the freedom she had lost long before she ever met her cruel husband. Eli was worried. She was still weak from the fever, but he could not deny her something so simple, so human. He helped her into the saddle and watched her ride off toward the tree line. She moved well on horseback, confident despite everything she had been through. She was gone maybe an hour when Eli heard it. A scream, the terrified cry of a horse. His blood went cold. He ran, heart slamming, legs burning, following the sound through the brush and up a rocky slope until he found them. Drum was tangled in some deadfall, fighting against the branches that held him, and Clara was half buried in the loose dirt of a collapsed ravine. She had been thrown when the ground gave way, landed hard on her side. "Clara!" Eli shouted. He slid down the slope, sending rocks tumbling, grabbed her shoulders. His hands ran over her arms and back, checking desperately for broken bones. And "I am all right," she whispered. Her voice was shaky but clear. "I'm all right." But Eli was not all right. The fear that hit him in that moment was stronger than anything he had felt since the war, stronger than the river, stronger than his nightmares. He could not lose her. The realization crashed through him like a wave. He could not lose this woman. Without thinking, he pulled her against him, crushed her to his chest, buried his face in her hair. She melted into him. Her arms circled his waist, her face pressed against his shirt. He could feel her heart beating fast, could feel her trembling. They stood like that for a longer time, two battered souls holding each other while the world went on around them. When Eli finally lifted her chin, their faces were inches apart. Her lips were parted, her eyes were searching his. He leaned in, almost kissed her, but then he saw something in her eyes. Not just desire, something deeper, something broken. He remembered that first night, the way she had offered herself to him, the desperation in her voice when she asked if he would stay if she undressed. This woman had been taught that her body was currency, that it was the only thing she had to offer. If he kissed her now, would she think it was payment for saving her? Would she think that was all he wanted? He stepped back. The moment shattered. Clara's face fell. Just for a second. Then she composed herself and looked away. They freed Drum from the deadfall in silence, walked back to the cabin in silence. The easy warmth from the night before was gone, replaced by something complicated, something neither of them knew how to name. That night, Clara stood before him in the cabin. Her jaw was set. Her hands were trembling. "You saved me," she said. "You care for me, but you never let me thank you." Eli stared at her, his knife frozen mid-stroke over the wood he was carving. "Clara!" he started. She reached up and unbuttoned the old army shirt she wore. His shirt, the one she had been wearing since the river took her dress. "Will you stay this time?" she whispered. The shirt slipped from her shoulders, fell to the floor in a pool of fabric. She stood before him in her thin shift. The firelight painted her skin gold. He could see her old scars now, faint silver lines across her back and arms, the map of her suffering. This time it was not a trade. It was not fear. It was not shame. It was a woman asking to be seen, wanted, chosen. Eli crossed the room in two long strides. His hands came up to her face, gentle, trembling. "I want you," he said. His voice was raw, honest, but not because you owe me anything. You understand? Not because of anything except that I want you. Her face crumpled. A tear slid down her cheek, then another, and the truth spilled out. Everything she had been holding back. The beatings that started on her wedding night. The baby she carried for 9 months only to lose him in a pool of blood. The brother-in-law who watched it all happen and did nothing. The husband who blamed her for everything wrong in his miserable life. She sobbed into Eli's chest. Shaking apart in his arms, years of pain pouring out like water from a broken dam. When she finished, Eli whispered against her hair, "That does not make you less. It makes you braver than any man I ever knew." She looked up at him, her eyes red, her face wet. "How can you say that? I let him hurt me. I stayed. You survived," Eli said firmly. "That is not weakness. That is strength." He kissed her forehead, her cheeks, the corner of her mouth. What happened next was not desperate. It was not payment. It was not pity. It was healing. Slow and tender. Full of all the pain they both carried. Two broken people finally finding a place where they belonged. In each other's arms. When they fell asleep that night, tangled together on the narrow cot, Eli felt something he had not felt in years. Peace, but he knew it could not last. Amos Jensen was still out there. Still hunting, still waiting. And the peace they had found was about to be shattered. 2 days of happiness. That was all they got. 2 days of waking up tangled together. 2 days of shared meals and quiet conversations. 2 days of learning each other's bodies and souls. Eli should have known it was too good to last. On the third morning, another rider came. This one was younger, meaner looking. Eli did not recognize him, but he recognized the type. Hired muscle. The kind of man who did other people's dirty work for cash. The rider did not dismount, just sat on his horse at the edge of the property line and stared at the cabin. Clara saw him through the window, all the color drained from her face. "He found me," she whispered. Eli grabbed his rifle from above the door. "Stay inside." He walked out to meet the stranger. Kept his rifle pointed at the ground but ready. "You are on my land," Eli said. "State your business." The rider smiled. It was not a friendly smile, just delivering a message. "Mr. Amos Jensen sends his regards to the widow. Says he knows she is here. Says if she comes back to town peaceful-like and returns what she stole, he might be willing to let bygones be bygones. And if she does not," the rider shrugged, "then Mr. Jensen will come get what is his. One way or another." He turned his horse around. "You have until tomorrow, friend. After that, well, Mr. Jensen is not a patient man." He rode off. Eli watched him go until he was just a speck on the horizon. When he went back inside, Claire was packing her things. "I have to go," she said. Her hands were shaking so bad she could barely tie her bag closed. "I will not let you get hurt because of me." Eli took the bag from her hands, set it on the table. "You are not going anywhere." "You heard him. Amos is coming. If I am not here, maybe he will leave you alone. And maybe he will kill you the second you step off this property." Clara's eyes filled with tears. "What choice do I have? I cannot fight him. I cannot hide forever. And I will not let you die for me." Eli took her face in his hands, made her look at him. "Listen to me. I have spent the last 10 years running from everything. From the war, from my memories, from anything that might make me feel something. I am done running." He pressed his forehead to hers. "If Amos Jensen wants you, he will have to go through me first. And I promise you, Clara, he will not find that easy." She stared at him. Something shifted in her eyes, fear giving way to something else. "Hope." "Why," she whispered. "Why would you do this for me?" Eli smiled, the first real smile he had worn in years. "Because you are worth fighting for. Because for the first time since Samuel died, I have something to live for. Because I love you, Clara Jensen, even if you are not ready to hear it." The words hung in the air between them, heavy and true. Clara reached up and kissed him, hard and desperate and full of everything she could not say. When she pulled back, there were tears on her cheeks. But she was smiling. "I love you too," she said. "I did not think I would ever love anyone again. But I love you, Eli Walker." They stood there for a long moment, holding each other, knowing what was coming. Then Eli stepped back. "We need a plan." They talked through the night, weighing options, considering possibilities. Running was not an answer. Amos had men, resources. He would track them wherever they went. Hiding would only delay the inevitable. Sooner or later, he would find them. That left one option. They had to face him, had to make a stand, had to clear Clara's name once and for all. It was risky, maybe even suicidal, but it was the only chance they had. In the morning, Eli rode into town alone. He found the sheriff's office first, told his version of events. The sheriff listened with a bored expression and shrugged. "Her word against a Jensen," he said. "And she ain't even really a Jensen. So that is it. You are just going to let him hunt her down like an animal." The sheriff leaned back in his chair. "I am going to let the law handle it. If she wants to make a formal complaint, she can come in herself." Eli left before he did something he would regret. He found Amos Jensen at the saloon. The man was holding court in the corner. Big, loud, surrounded by 3 mean-looking cowboys who laughed at his every word. Eli walked up to the table. The laughter stopped. "You must be Walker," Amos said. He did not stand, did not offer his hand, just sat there with a smug smile on his fat face. "And you must be the coward who beats women through his brother." The smile disappeared. Amos's face went red. "You do not know what you are talking about." "I know exactly what I am talking about. Clara told me everything. About Silas, about you, about what really happened to that baby." Amos slammed his fist on the table. "That woman is a liar and a thief. She stole from my family. She disgraced the Jensen name. And when I find her, I am going to make sure she pays for every penny she took. Eli leaned in close. You are not going to find her. You are not going to touch her. You are going to forget she exists and crawl back under whatever rock you came from. Amos laughed, but there was no humor in it. Or what? Eli's voice dropped to a whisper. Or I will kill you, same as I killed 100 men in the war, same as I will kill anyone who tries to hurt her. He straightened up. You have been warned. He walked out of the saloon without looking back. He knew he had just made things worse. Knew Amos would come for them now with everything he had. But Eli Walker was done running. Done hiding. Done being afraid. For the first time in 10 years, he had something worth fighting for. And God help anyone who tried to take it away. Amos did not wait until tomorrow. Eli was halfway back to the cabin when he spotted the dust cloud on the horizon. 3 riders, moving fast, coming from the direction of town. He kicked Drum into a gallop. Clara was in the yard when he arrived. She saw his face and knew immediately. They are coming. Get inside. Get my pistol from under the cot. Load it. She did not argue, did not hesitate, just ran. Eli positioned himself on the porch, rifle ready, heart pounding. The riders arrived minutes later. Amos was in front. His 2 hired men flanked him. They stopped at the property line, just like the messenger had done. Walker, Amos called out. He was still smiling that smug smile. I thought about what you said, and you know what? You are right. This has gone on long enough. He spread his hands. I am a reasonable man. So here's what I propose. You send the woman out here. She gives me what she stole, and we all go our separate ways. No blood, no trouble. Everyone wins. Eli did not lower his rifle. She did not steal anything. That money was hers, saved over years of being married to your piece of trash brother. Amos's smile flickered. Careful, Walker. You are outnumbered. Numbers do not mean much when I can put a bullet between your eyes before your boys even draw. Silence. The hired men shifted uneasily in their saddles. Then Amos laughed. You are bluffing. You are not going to shoot a man in cold blood. Not over some worthless woman. Try me. They stared at each other, 2 wolves measuring each other across the snow. Finally, Amos pulled on his reins. Fine, have it your way. But this is not over, Walker. Not by a long shot. He turned his horse and rode away. His men followed. Eli watched them until they disappeared. Then he went inside. Clara was standing in the middle of the room, his pistol clutched in both hands. She was shaking so hard the gun rattled. He gently took the weapon from her, set it on the table, pulled her into his arms. It is okay. They are gone. For now, she whispered. But they will be back. She was right. Of course she was right. Amos Jensen was not the type to give up. He would regroup, plan, come back with more men. They could not stay here. We need to leave, Eli said, tonight. Head for Lander. There is a judge there. A real one. Someone who might actually listen. Clara pulled back, looked at him with wide eyes. You would do that. Leave your home. This is just a cabin. You are my home now. She kissed him, soft and sweet and full of gratitude. They packed what they could carry. Food, water, ammunition. Clara's small bag of savings, the locket she never let out of her sight. As the sun set, they rode out, heading north toward Lander, toward hope. They made camp that first night in a small clearing surrounded by pine trees. Eli built a fire while Clara prepared a simple meal. Neither of them spoke much. The tension was too thick. After they ate, Clara lay with her head in Eli's lap. He stroked her hair while the fire crackled. What if the judge does not believe us? She asked quietly. Then we keep going. California, Oregon, somewhere far enough that Amos can never find us. What about your land, your life? Eli was quiet for a moment. I had a life before I met you, he said finally. But I was not really living, just existing, going through the motions, waiting for something without knowing what. He looked down at her. Then you came along, drowning in my river, and suddenly I knew what I was waiting for. Clara smiled, that beautiful smile that lit up her whole face. I do not deserve you, Eli Walker. Maybe not, but you are stuck with me anyway. They made love that night under the stars, slow and gentle, like they had all the time in the world. They did not. The next morning, they were ambushed. Eli woke to the sound of horses. Close. Too close. He grabbed his rifle, rolled to his feet, but before he could take aim, a voice rang out. Do not move, Walker. You are surrounded. Amos Jensen stepped out of the trees. He was not alone. 5 men this time, all armed, all pointing their weapons at the camp. Clara screamed. Eli calculated the odds. 5-1. No cover. No time to run. He lowered his rifle. Smart man, Amos said. He walked closer. His smile was gone now, replaced by something cold and ugly. I told you this was not over. Let her go, Eli said. Take me instead. I am the one who threatened you. Amos laughed. You think this is about you. This is about family honor, about teaching that woman her place. He grabbed Clara by the arm, yanked her away from Eli. She fought, kicked, scratched, but she was no match for him. Tie him up, Amos ordered. We are taking them both to town. Eli looked at Clara, saw the terror in her eyes, the despair. He made a decision. When the first man reached for him, Eli moved, fast as a snake. He grabbed the man's gun arm, twisted, fired. The shot echoed through the mountains. 1 man down, but 4 remained, and they were ready. Something hard hit Eli in the back of the head. The world went dark. The last thing he heard was Clara screaming his name. Eli woke to the smell of hay and the taste of blood. His head was pounding. His hands were tied behind his back. He was lying on a rough wooden floor in what looked like a barn. Clara was beside him, bound the same way. Her face was pale, streaked with tears. But when she saw his eyes open, she let out a sob of relief. You are alive. Barely, he groaned. Where are we? A barn outside town. They have been gone for hours, talking to the sheriff, deciding what to do with us. Eli tested his bonds. They were tight, professional. Whoever tied them knew what they were doing. Are you hurt? Clara shook her head. No, just scared. We are going to get out of this, I promise. She looked at him with those moss-green eyes, full of fear but also something else. Trust, whatever happens, she said quietly. I want you to know, these past weeks with you, they have been the happiest of my life. Eli's throat tightened. Do not talk like that. We are not done yet. The barn door opened. Amos Jensen walked in, followed by 2 of his men. He looked pleased with himself, like a cat who had finally cornered a mouse. Well, well, Sleeping Beauty is awake. He crouched down in front of Eli, close enough to smell the whiskey on his breath. The sheriff agrees with me, he said. You killed one of my men. That is murder. They are going to hang you in the morning. Clara let out a strangled cry. And her, Amos continued. She is coming back to the Jensen ranch with me, going to work off what she owes, one way or another. Eli felt rage boiling up inside him. White hot and deadly. If you touch her, he said through clenched teeth, I will kill you. I do not care if I have to come back from the grave to do it. Amos laughed. Big talk from a dead man. He stood up, brushed off his pants. Enjoy your last night, Walker. Come morning, that pretty little neck of yours is going to stretch. He walked out, his men followed. The door slammed shut behind them. Clara was crying now. Quiet, hopeless sobs that broke Eli's heart. He started working on his ropes. They had made a mistake. The men who tied him, they had bound his hands behind his back. Sure, but they had left his feet free, and they had not searched him properly. The small knife in his boot, the one he always carried, it was still there. It took time. His fingers were numb from the tight ropes. The knife was hard to reach, but inch by inch he managed to get it into his hands. He started sawing at the ropes. Clara watched him. Hope returning to her eyes. Can you reach my hands? She whispered. Not yet. Let me get mine free first. The barn was quiet except for the sound of his breathing, the scratch of the knife against rope, the distant noise of men laughing somewhere outside. Finally, the ropes gave way. Eli's hands were free. He crawled over to Clara, cut her loose, pulled her into a fierce embrace. Now what? She asked. Now we run. They found a gap in the barn wall, big enough to squeeze through. The night outside was dark, cloudy, no moon, perfect for escaping. They moved through the shadows, staying low, avoiding the torches that flickered near the main house where Amos and his men were celebrating their victory. They were almost to the tree line when a shout rang out. They are gone. Find them. Run, Eli shouted. They sprinted, branches whipping at their faces, rocks tearing at their feet. Behind them, horses were being mounted. Men were yelling. Clara stumbled. Eli grabbed her arm, hauled her forward. There, a ravine, deep and dark and full of shadows. Down here. They slid down the rocky slope, pressed themselves against the cold stone. Above them, horses thundered past. The search went on for hours, but the night was too dark, the ravine too well hidden. Eventually, the searchers gave up, headed back toward town. Eli and Clara waited until dawn, then they started walking. Lander was still a day away, but they had no horses, no supplies, nothing but the clothes on their backs and each other. They walked through the mountains, following streams to cover their trail, eating berries and roots when they could find them. Clara never complained, never slowed down. She walked beside him with a determination that amazed him. This woman had been through hell, and she was still standing, still fighting. He loved her more in that moment than he ever thought possible. On the second day they reached Lander. The town was bigger than Eli expected, bustling with miners and ranchers and businessmen. There was a real courthouse, a real jail, and hopefully a real judge who would listen. They found a room at a boarding house, paid for it with what little money Clara had left. That night they held each other close. Tomorrow we face the judge, Clara whispered. Tomorrow we fight for our future, Eli replied. Whatever happens, Clara said, we face it together. Eli kissed her forehead. Together. It was a promise, the most important one he had ever made, and he intended to keep it. The courthouse in Lander was an imposing building of stone and timber. It sat in the center of town like a fortress of law and order. Eli and Clara walked through its doors hand in hand. Judge Walter Morrison was a thin man with sharp eyes and a reputation for fairness. He listened to their story without interruption. His face gave nothing away. When they finished, he leaned back in his chair. That is quite a tale, he said. A woman fleeing an abusive marriage, a man risking his life to protect her, and a powerful family determined to destroy them both. It is the truth, Clara said, every word. The judge studied her for a long moment. I believe you, he said finally, but belief is not evidence. If Amos Jensen brings charges against you, I will need more than your word to dismiss them. We have witnesses, Eli said, people in town who saw how Silas treated her, doctors who treated her injuries. Bring them forward. I will hear their testimony. Before he could say more, the courthouse doors burst open. Amos Jensen strode in like he owned the place. His face was red with fury. Behind him were three of his men, armed, dangerous. This is outrageous, Amos shouted. These two are criminals, murderers. They killed one of my men and escaped lawful custody. Judge Morrison rose to his feet. You are out of order, Mr. Jensen. I am out of order. That woman stole from my family, and this man shot down one of my employees in cold blood. In self-defense, Eli said, your men ambushed us. Amos turned on him. His eyes were wild. His hand dropped to his gun. You are going to hang Walker one way or another. The judge slammed his gavel on the desk. There will be no violence in my courthouse. Mr. Jensen, you will remove your hand from that weapon or I will have you arrested for contempt. For a long moment, nobody moved. Then Amos smiled, that cold, ugly smile. Fine, we will do this your way. For now, he walked out. His men followed. The judge turned to Eli and Clara. You have made a powerful enemy. I would suggest you find those witnesses quickly. They spent the rest of the day tracking down people who knew the truth. The doctor who had treated Clara's broken arm. The neighbor who had heard Silas beating her through the walls. The preacher who had married them and watched the light die in Clara's eyes over the years. One by one they agreed to testify. But Amos was not sitting idle. That night, Eli and Clara returned to the boarding house to find their room ransacked, their belongings scattered, a message carved into the wall. You cannot hide. They barely slept. Eli sat by the window with his rifle, watching, waiting. Dawn came. They dressed in their best clothes, walked to the courthouse surrounded by their witnesses. The hearing began at 9 in the morning. Clara told her story first. The years of abuse, the baby she lost, the escape. By the time she finished, half the courtroom was in tears. Then the witnesses spoke. The doctor described injuries consistent with long-term abuse. The neighbor testified to the screams she heard every night. The preacher admitted he should have done more to help. Finally, it was Amos's turn. He called his own witnesses, men who worked for him, men who swore Clara was a liar and a thief, men who claimed Eli had murdered their friend without provocation. But their stories did not add up. Under the judge's questioning, they contradicted each other, stumbled over details, looked nervous and unsure. Judge Morrison saw through the lies. He was about to deliver his verdict when Amos made his move. "This is a farce," he shouted, jumping to his feet. "This woman is a criminal, and I will not let some frontier judge tell me otherwise." He drew his gun. Everything happened at once. One of his men rushed toward Clara. Another aimed at Eli. Eli moved faster than he had ever moved in his life. He tackled the man going for Clara. They crashed through a bench. The gun went off, wild, missing everyone. But the third man, the one Eli had forgotten about, he was on him before Eli could react. A knife flashed. Eli felt white-hot pain in his side. He staggered, fell to one knee, blood poured through his fingers. Clara screamed. She grabbed the gun from the man Eli had tackled, the one who was still dazed on the floor. Her hands were shaking. Her whole body was trembling. But her aim was steady. She fired. The man who stabbed Eli fell with a howl of pain, clutching his shoulder. Eli looked up at Clara, at this woman who had been beaten and broken and told she was worthless. Standing over him with a smoking gun, fire in her eyes, his angel. The sheriff burst in with his deputies. Amos and his remaining men were taken into custody. The judge called for a doctor, and Clara. Clara fell to her knees beside Eli, cradling his head in her lap. "Do not leave me," she begged. "Please, Eli, stay with me. Stay." Her tears fell on his face, warm against his cold skin. He tried to speak, to tell her he was not going anywhere, but the darkness was pulling him down. The last thing he saw was her face. The last thing he heard was her voice. "I love you. I love you. Please do not leave me." Then everything went black. Eli Walker woke to the sound of a woman crying. For a moment, he thought he was back in the war. Thought the crying was from a widow being told her husband was dead. Thought the pain in his side was from a Confederate bullet. Then he opened his eyes and saw Clara. She was sitting beside his bed. Her face was pale. Her eyes were red and swollen. Her hand was wrapped around his so tight it was almost painful. But when she saw him looking at her, the crying stopped, replaced by the most beautiful smile he had ever seen. "You are awake," she whispered. "Takes more than a knife to kill me." She laughed through her tears, a sound like bells ringing. "You stupid, stupid, brave man. I thought I lost you." Eli tried to sit up. The pain in his side flared and he fell back with a groan. "Easy," Clara said. "The doctor says you need to rest. The knife missed anything vital, but you lost a lot of blood." "What happened?" "After." Clara took a deep breath. "Amos is in jail. The judge found him guilty of assault and conspiracy. He is going to prison for a long time. His men too. And the charges against you? Dropped. All of them. The judge said I acted in self-defense. Said I was the victim here, not the criminal." Eli closed his eyes, relief washing over him. "It is over. It is over," Clara agreed. "We are free." They stayed in Lander for 3 weeks while Eli recovered. Clara never left his side. She fed him, changed his bandages, held his hand through the long nights when the fever tried to drag him under. She whispered to him when the nightmares came, when he cried out for Samuel, when he fought battles that existed only in his mind. "You are here," she would say. "You are safe. You are mine." And he always found his way back to her voice. Slowly, day by day, he got stronger. The wound closed. The color returned to his face. He started walking again. First around the room, then around the building, then around the town, and Clara was always beside him, matching his steps, sharing his silence, loving him with a patience that took his breath away. On the 21st day, the doctor declared him fit to travel. "Where will you go?" the doctor asked. "Home," Eli said. He looked at Clara. "We are going home." They rode back to the cabin by the Wind River. It was exactly as they had left it. A little dusty, a little cold, but still standing. Clara started a fire while Eli sat in his chair, watching her move around the space, watching her make it hers. That night they lay together in the narrow cot, her head on his chest, his arms wrapped around her. "I want to wake up like this every morning," Eli said quietly, "if you will have me." Clara lifted her head, her moss-green eyes shining. "Are you asking me to marry you, Eli Walker?" He smiled. "I suppose I am." She kissed him, long and deep and full of promise. Then yes, 1,000 times yes. They were married under the cottonwood tree by the Wind River. The same river that had almost taken Clara's life. The same tree she had clung to while the water tried to drown her. Now it was the place where she began again. The ceremony was small, just Jed from the Double Bar Ranch and a few neighbors who had come to respect the quiet couple in the valley. The preacher read from his worn Bible. The sun painted the mountains gold and pink. Clara wore a simple cream-colored dress, the same shade as the flowers that bloomed along the riverbank. Her dark hair was loose, adorned with wildflowers that Eli had picked that morning. She had never looked more beautiful. Eli wore his cleanest shirt, the one Clara had mended a dozen times. He stood straight and tall, the scar on his side still tender but healing. When the preacher asked if he would take this woman as his wife, his voice did not waver. "I will." When Clara was asked the same question, tears streamed down her face. "I will. Forever." They kissed while the small crowd cheered. The river murmured beside them. The mountains watched in silence. Two broken souls, finally whole. After the ceremony, they walked along the water, hand in hand, the way they had done so many times before. Clara stopped at the spot where Eli had pulled her from the current. "Do you remember?" she asked. "How could I forget? You were half drowned and still the most beautiful thing I had ever seen." She laughed. That bright, clear sound he loved so much. "I thought I was dying. I thought no one would ever find me. And then there you were, swimming through the storm like some kind of angel." "I am no angel. You are to me." They stood in silence, watching the water flow past. Peaceful now. Nothing like the wild beast that had nearly killed them both. Clara slipped her hand into his. "Will you stay now?" she whispered. Eli smiled, pulled her close. "I am not going anywhere." And he never did. They built a home on the rise overlooking the valley. A real home with 2 bedrooms and a proper kitchen. A home of warm light and hard work and love that grew stronger every day. The ghost did not leave them. They never do. But Eli and Clara learned to live with them. Together, they had children, 2 boys and a girl, who grew up strong and kind and free, who never knew what it meant to be afraid in their own home. And on quiet evenings, when the sun melted into gold behind the peaks, Clara would slip her hand into Eli's, just like that first time by the river. "Do you ever regret it?" she would ask. "Regret what?" "Saving me, getting involved, all the trouble I brought into your life." Eli would look at her, at the silver in her hair and the lines around her eyes, at the woman who had given him everything he never knew he wanted. "The only thing I regret," he would say, "is not finding you sooner." She would smile, that beautiful smile, and he would kiss her, and the river would sing beside them. And they would live happily, finally, truly, forever.